All right, there we go. Well, excellent. Well, thank you all for coming. My name is Brad Waldschmidt, and I'm an engineer that works with NDOT on the traffic calming program. And tonight we're here to talk about traffic calming along Rio Vista Drive and Archwood Drive. We'll also go through the history of this particular two streets as the program has changed, we think for the better. So they don't all take this long. This one's been going along, but we'll talk about the history and what the next steps will be as far as the voting goes for traffic calming. So that's what we're going to be here talking about today. So again, intro, we're going to talk about why Rio Vista and Archwood were selected to begin with. We're going to talk about the design that we've prepared on these two streets. And then again, like I mentioned, the voting process and the next steps. So we like to talk about the 3 E's of traffic calming. The first one is education, and this meeting is a great opportunity where we get to educate you on traffic calming, and we also get to hear from you on what do you think about the design. It's really a two-way education where we can all learn from each other and work together to try to make our streets a little safer. The enforcement is just what it sounds like, enforcing the speed limit. It can be officers writing tickets, things of that nature. At NDOT, we are in a police precinct, but at NDOT, we do not control the enforcement. That is absolutely a police thing, but at NDOT, we're more on that third one there, the engineering. What can we do to the streets or to try to find ways to encourage people to maybe want to drive a little slower than how they're driving on the streets today? So again, we're focused on residential streets like Rio Vista and Archwood are, and we usually are looking at physical solutions to reduce those vehicle speeds, really not just in a few spots, but along the entirety of a street. We don't want people to slow down just in one spot and then have the rest of the street. It's kind of a, what can we do to really encourage some slower speeds along the street? I kind of covered some of this here. Again, we're wanting to focus on safety. Metro Nashville, NDOT, very focused on safety, and this is one way by slowing cars down on these residential neighborhood streets. We do like to make sure everybody knows about Hub Nashville. We're here to talk about traffic calming with you all, and we're not leaving until we have all your questions answered and talk through everything. But if there's anything outside of traffic calming, this is a great resource. You can call 311 or you can go to hub.nashville.gov. That would be things for like stop signs. Stop signs are not part of traffic calming, but NDOT, other engineers can look at if you have requests for stop signs, if there's trees down in the road or a storm drain inlet clogged or anything like that, you feel like someone needs to know about it. Again, if it's traffic calming, Misa, sorry, Misa, I forgot to let you introduce yourself. Can you introduce yourself as well?
So I speak Spanish fluently.
Yeah, thanks. So I forgot, does anybody here speak Spanish only? Okay, great. And I'll just ask for anybody on the WebEx. Does anybody on the WebEx speak Spanish only? Okay, there's nobody on the WebEx. Just wanted to make sure we asked. Michelle, I apologize for waiting to let you introduce yourself. But yes, so we do have that service for anybody who only speaks Spanish if they do join. But anyway, so that's just Hub Nashville. And now back to traffic calming. Many streets in Nashville want traffic calming. Over 400 streets have applied for it. Nashville only typically selects 24, 25 twice a year. So that's 50 each year. You all were selected, I believe, in late 2021. They usually do not take that long, y'all. I'll kind of go through the history. They usually are going much quicker, especially since recent changes that have improved it. But so a lot of demand, not as many selected each time due to the number of engineers that we have in Nashville to do the work. But we're doing the best we can, working hard. And this is how each street is chosen. So when Rio Vista, when they were applied for, I think it was Rio Vista, how was it selected? We look at data. We look at how fast are cars going and compare that to the speed limit. The bigger the difference, the higher that score is going to be. We look at how many crashes are happening along the street. We look at things like active transportation and neighborhood destinations. If you have a street that does not have a sidewalk, that means people have to walk in the pavement, right? Which means if someone's speeding, that's a bigger, that actually scores higher. Whereas a street with sidewalks actually scores them lower because there's somewhere for you to walk. That's kind of how that scoring works. And then if you have schools or parks, places people want to walk to, that also scores you higher. So that's sort of what this pie chart, all 400 plus streets get scored this way. And in this case, I think we're talking about Rio Vista, and Archwood is along for the ride as well for this design. So again, we're talking about Archwood Drive and Rio Vista Drive between Old Hickory and Anderson Lane. There is a small piece of Anderson Lane as well. I don't want to forget that. So it's mostly Rio Vista Archwood, but the connector up top is also part of this design. Just want to make sure we stay that. Also worth noting, there is a WeGo route along Archwood Drive. You probably know that because this is your neighborhood, but I'm just saying it for the record. So we always coordinate with WeGo when we're going to design any sort of traffic calming on the street, just to make sure they're communicating. So the conclusion from this is we've been coordinating with WeGo. They know what we're doing. They know that the traffic calming may be coming to Archwood Drive pending a vote, which we'll get to here in a minute. So what have we proposed along these streets? We have many things in our toolbox. We're going to show you the one that we've proposed, which are these speed cushions. They are definitely the more common, the more typical one. Each of those black rubberized cushions is about 6 foot wide and then 7 feet long. So when your car goes over it, you're going over around 7 feet. The highest point off the ground is like 3 inches. So they do slow traffic, but they're so if you can imagine how high 3 inches is, you don't bottom out on them. But that's the dimension, and you'll see these gaps. These gaps are there for a few reasons. Emergency vehicles. It can be a little bit for buses, but it's mostly for the emergency vehicles, because anytime you're slowing cars down, you're slowing all cars down. That includes fire trucks. That includes ambulances. The front wheelbase, those tires are further apart. They can actually straddle these speed cushions. Now the back tires, a lot of times they have 2 tires on each side. They do hit the edges, kind of those ramp ups on the sides, if you can see them. So they don't have a full impact over the cushion, but they do kind of go over the edges. So it does have, anything we put will have some impact on emergency vehicle response time, but these have a little bit less impact than if it was like a full speed table across the entire road. Hopefully that makes sense, but that's why we're proposing speed cushions to slow motorists down, but still kind of a lot of, yes, you have a question.
Do we get to have the yellow line?
For this, so for this, if a street has the double yellow line, then it's going to stay. If it doesn't have the double yellow line, I don't think we're proposing to add it.
I mean, so one of the most, okay, so Archwood.
Archwood.
I've been there a year. I've been out in my front yard every day from 6 a.m. to midnight, working in a garden and doing things that needed around the house. And there's on the coldest day of the year, we had 10 people walk down that street. And in midsummer, we have an average of 170 people a day walk down Archwood.
Mm-hmm.
So paint down the middle and a pedestrian paint or bike walk lane on one or both sides would make a great move.
So 2 thoughts to that. I'd have to go back and look. I don't think Archwood is quite as wide. I'm going off of memory. Please correct me, but I don't. Right. So you're talking about Archwood, correct?
But I'm also saying, why should cars be prioritized there? Because it's Archwood and it ends at Old Hickory and it begins at Anderson, really. So why should cars be prioritized on that street when actually pedestrians have as much traffic there as downtown?
Right. So yeah. So just to be clear, and we'll shoot to the design. I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll check and see if I'm right. I believe Rio Vista has some sections where the pavement's wider. The traffic calming program does not widen streets. It kind of takes the pavement that's there and says, what can we do to calm traffic down? I believe portions of Rio Vista are wider, and so therefore I believe we may be adding the white lines that kind of create that unofficial walking area. Archwood Drive, I believe, is narrower, and we have to leave about 10 to 11 feet of pavement for each direction of car travel. So that means we have to leave 20 to 22 feet for cars. I don't believe there's as much remaining area on Archwood for what you're asking for the walking area. So I don't know if it's prioritizing cars or using what's available to us and without widening. Yes.
I'll definitely argue with you on that.
Okay.
22 feet for cars and nothing for people. 150 people a day in the summer walking down that road.
How much width would you want to give to cars?
You know, so one of them has to slow or stop for another one to get by. That's fine with me.
How much width? I'm just curious. 8 feet? We probably won't do that. especially with the WeGo bus route on that corridor, probably won't do it. So, yeah, no, I appreciate it, but we do look at the pavement we have, and when there's wider pavement, we absolutely try to do what you're talking about. In this case, that's a great question. I can relay that to WeGo to ask if they're looking at that. I'm not sure.
Or we could have pay for the sidewalk all the way down. Like, 'cause they, you know, they're pretty much tax-free siphoning off our.
Gotcha.
money.
I'm not aware of that, but no, interesting. Okay. Right. But to get back to the point, NDOT does focus on pedestrians and cars. This program does not widen. So we do look at what the pavement's available, and because Archwood is narrower, that is the true reason why we're not proposing that on Archwood, but Rio Vista may be getting some of that. So I understand you may not appreciate that answer, but that is the engineering answer. So, so the speed cushions are being proposed. I'm going to switch over now to that final design, and we will see if I was failing in my memory or if I was remembering correctly. So this is a very zoomed out version. We'll have more zoomed in sheets as we go along. First, what we have here is Archwood Drive. We're showing 5 speed cushion locations between Old Hickory Boulevard and Anderson Lane. And then I'm going to go to the next sheet. That's that small Anderson Lane section where we're going to be doing 1 set of speed cushions between Rio Vista and Archwood. And then here's Rio Vista Drive. It's a little longer of a street. So there's 6 speed cushion locations along, just because it's slightly longer in length. That's why Archwood gets 5, Rio Vista gets 6. I'm going to zoom in here in a moment, but when we design these, what we're trying to do is we're trying to design them not too far apart, because then people that want to speed still can have more distance to pick up speed, but we also try not to put them too close. We don't want to feel like we're in a grocery parking lot or a mall parking lot and go over them. So we usually try to space them a distance, kind of that happy spot, but also not put them too close to stop signs in Old Hickory Boulevard. So we're going to go through now, and we're going to start here here's Signal at Old Hickory and Archwood. North, I apologize, y'all, north is kind of pointing to the right of the sheet. So we're going to kind of go up toward the, is it the dump? Is it the dump that's up there? We're gonna go north kind of toward the dump here. So the convenience center, thank you. Thank you, that is a better way of phrasing it, the convenience center. And so our first set of cushions on Archwood Drive is in front of the street address numbers 116 and 117. You can see some diamonds with those warning signs. Everywhere you see some of those will be those yellow warning signs, kind of right next to the speed cushions. So people that are driving on the street, not only will they see the black rubberized cushions in the pavement that have some like white triangles, so they kind of light up at night. We also put these yellow warning signs to give people a little more advanced notice that there's something coming up. So everywhere you see those, the warning signs will be present. Yes, you have a question.
20 miles an hour over this thing?
You can. I've done it.
Serious. They fly, man. We're walking our dog, and I know I'm just
Yeah.
I mean, they're crazy.
So my answer is, how fast people want to drive is it varies.
I just like those.
Oh, that street.
I like those.
You don't have speed cushions yet, though. I'm saying when you drive over speed cushions, for instance, I drive a Honda Accord. 15 to 20 is where I feel comfortable on my Honda. If someone drives like a souped up Jeep or a truck, they may feel comfortable driving faster, y'all. But like different people, and someone who's younger, like a high school driver, they may not care. Whereas I'm getting a little older, like I might feel it a little more. So different people have different comfort speeds. We feel like these are safe to drive over at 20 miles per hour. That's why we put the 20. Some people want to go 15. Some people may want to go 25 and 30. But I hope they don't go 30. But we're trying to slow the speed down, and this is kind of the one way. Yes. So moving past North DuPont, the next location is in front of, I'm gonna move my cursor, it's in the way. Next location is in front of the 204 and 205 addresses along Archwood. And as we continue north, now we're north of Roosevelt. The next location is in front of 304 and 305. Then the next location is in front of 317 and 328. And then the final cushion before we get to Anderson up at the top there is right in front of 337 and 340. A few things you'll notice, we tried to put these speed cushions right in the middle of curves. We like to kind of put them outside of horizontal curves so people can really see them. We also try not to put them on vertical curves. If they are placed on too steep of a curve, they can get damaged, and we're actually not supposed to do that. So sometimes we have some steep hills and we can't put them on there, but we try to work through that as well with the design. We also don't put these right in front of people's driveways. I want to make sure you all know that. These should not get installed right at your driveway. We try to keep them at least 15 or 20 feet either direction from your driveway. They're fine to be turning over. They're a little more pleasant when you're going straight over them and not turning over them. So that's all kind of the design thought as to what you're seeing here. I'm going to go to the next slide, which I believe is going to be the Anderson Lane. Now north, we're pointing back up. I believe the convenience center is covered by the photo there. And so the one set of cushions on Anderson would go between the 914 and the 916 location. So when people, if they're going across that through that Rio Vista curve, there's one right there. And then we're going to go to Rio Vista. You'll see there's some on Rio Vista as well. But that's the Anderson Lane location. So now let's go to Rio Vista. This will test my memory. I believe portions of Rio Vista are wider, some are not. So this is, you see those white lines, those are the white line edge narrowings you were asking about, I think, for Archwood. Rio Vista is a little wider, which is why you see them being proposed here. And we'll have some sheets in the back that'll kind of articulate that a little better.
Yellow line?
I believe, because I think Rio Vista currently has the double yellow. Again, I'm going off memory. And so what we try to keep it as is. So that's why if Archwood currently has a double yellow, we would keep that. If it doesn't, we weren't proposing to add it.
You have like a dash line or anything.
Right. So, but that's why you see. Also, I want to point out, you see what difference here is there's 2 cushions in each spot. Archwood goes to 3. That's because we want to slow vehicle speeds. Unfortunately, some people still may want to speed. So if we only did 2 cushions on a wider street, there'd be this extra pavement where the people can kind of just steer around them and avoid the cushions. So Rio Vista is where we kind of go to we call it a 3 wide, so that there's lesser chance that people will just sort of, they can still do one tire track on it and one tire track through the gaps. That may happen, but we want to avoid anything where they can kind of completely, so that's why you see a 3 wide here. So now we're going, again, we're up near the convenience center. We're gonna go south on Rio Vista toward Old Hickory. The first location is in front of the 384 address, which I don't think there's a home there, but basically right south of the curve. Then you can kind of see the next one is just north of that. We're gonna call it the northern driveway to the Charter Village Apartments. The next one is just north of the center driveway to the Charter Village Apartments. We're gonna go to the next. Then the 4th one is just north of the southern driveway to the Village Apartments, Charter Village Apartments. Then as we continue on, just before you get to North DuPont Avenue, there's another set there. Again, in front of 216, looks like 216 may actually be a home. And there's a lot of undeveloped parcels here, so I'm referencing street addresses less because there's not as much mailboxes, I don't think. And then I believe North DuPont is an always stop. I'm going off memory. It's been a while. Okay. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go between North DuPont and Old Hickory for that final spot. So this is where Rio Vista is a little narrower, and so that's why we're proposing the back to the 2 wide speed cushions there in front of 136 and 137. Even though there's a signal at Old Hickory and a always stop at North DuPont, we could see where people would, if they want to speed and be dangerous, they could try to gun it and really speed. So that's why we proposed a speed cushion location in the middle to try to get in front of that. So what I want to do now is, yeah, oh yes.
The biggest problem with this intersection is that when people are coming straight in, they don't have a stop, so they can just keep going. But if people are stopped at each stop sign, they don't know that these people didn't stop. And the people that are going into Rollins Market sometimes just stop looking for where they're gonna park and then the people behind them slam into it.
So are you talking about this intersection, like right here?
Yeah.
Basically,
Sit in East Old Hickory.
for the people on the WebEx, it's just the intersection just to the south of the signal. The answer is I don't know. And we're kind of stopping our traffic calming project at the signal.
About it at the last meeting.
We did, and I think we determined that the signal is going to be the end of the project. So we're not going to the south. I'm always interested in creative ideas though. So I don't want to, I'm not saying it's a bad idea, but it probably will not appear in a traffic calming project. But I like this idea for like a Hub Nashville request or talking with a council member or something like that. Because I don't know this intersection as well as you do, but given how close it is, I could see it. Oh, I apologize. I apologize. I'm not sure I've had a meeting in your council district before, council member. So there we go. That's why I know that's why it's the convenience center. Yeah. There we go. Well, we are going to stop at the signal, but as an engineer, I always like innovative ideas. I would encourage, I can go back and share that with NDOT, but it probably will not include in the traffic calming project. Oh gosh. Oh gosh. Excellent. Yes.
It's only one right there because of the elevation.
No, it's only one between DuPont and Old Hickory is the distance. 0 cushions, people could just really treat it like a racetrack maybe, but if we put 2 cushions there, then where the 2 cushions would be, one would be a little too close to a stop sign for how the taxpayer money is being spent, and one would be too close to a signal where they should be slowing down or stopping. So we feel like the one location was a good distance between a stop sign and a signal, and that's the thought for why there's 1 cushion on this block. Yeah.
And that's Rio Vista?
Yes, this is Rio Vista between DuPont and Old Hickory. Yeah, so
The other side turns into Van Dyke.
Oh, because that, when you're walking it, that's a really long stretch of road.
yeah,
There's a stop sign on Rio Vista?
Where are you talking? Rio Vista?
Rio Vista at DuPont.
Yeah, there is 4-way stop. Not that everybody stops. but
Yeah,
there's a 4-way stop.
there is. So I'm usually listening for the roar of engines, and when there aren't any, then I run.
Mm. Right, right, right. So again, the lack of sidewalks helps the score with traffic calming. I don't remember the speed data, but all those things in that pie chart we looked at is why we're here today. Exactly. So we'll kind of like to over communicate. Imagine if we were kind of 100 feet, flying over the speed cushions, looking straight down. That's kind of what they look like. The one on the right is an example of that Rio Vista where it's in front of the apartments, where it's kind of wider. You can see there's the 3 cushions. You see we're adding those white lines, the ones you asked about on Archwood, but the Rio Vista in front of the apartments would get that. Again, it's not a bike lane, it's not a sidewalk, but it is sort of defining where the cars should drive. And I will tell you, I live in a neighborhood that has those white edge lines, and I just feel a little better when I'm walking with my dog and my family. So it won't be it's not an official sidewalk, but it's somewhere to kind of let the cars know they need to stay inside the white lines and not on the other side of the white lines. And then the typical one, the 2 wide, is kind of what that shows like, and you can kind of see the distances as far as how big those gaps are between the cushions. And I think here's just some additional examples. The streets vary, so this is more for the contractor, but I want to make sure you all see it different. My guess is that since Rio Vista, that last location here, Rio Vista, where it's 2 wide, but the center line, that's probably what that one is. And then over there, that's probably the Archwood one, since there's not a double yellow center line. So that's my guess, is that one's for the contractor, so they know where to put them on the road, so they're spaced appropriately. Correct, because Archwood, we're going to do the white lines. We have to make sure there's enough pavement for the cars to make a difference. And Archwood's just a little relatively narrower, so we're not proposing the white edge lines on Archwood. Yes.
Lying on one side of Archwood and not the other?
I don't think we would do that. Usually with the white edge lines, it's both sides or none of the sides.
Or even just aligned on the middle? you watch them, they'll just be all over the road.
So
Whatever won't slow it down.
So I will ask NDOT about the yellow center line for Archwood, and we'll have to see when the design goes to vote if what we decided. I will tell you that as an engineer, I've heard and seen presentations where if there's a double yellow center line, the cars are more prone to actually kind of get away from the double yellow center line, which means they're kind of closer to the edge of the road where people are walking. I've heard of that before. Whereas
Just a yellow or a dashed white.
we
But you think they would move them off to the side?
if we're gonna do a line down the middle, it will be the double yellow. So it's either nothing or a double yellow. But I'm telling you, I have heard of safety studies and things and industry engineering where that double yellow, you kind of think, I don't want to. I'm gonna kind of just inch a little further away from that, just a little bit, which means they're getting closer to where the walkers are. That's another reason why I can ask NDOT, but that's what may happen on Archwood. I think that may actually be a bad thing for the walkers on Archwood. That's just my opinion, thinking on the fly. But I'm not trying to convince you. I'm just trying to inform of like what I've kind of, and it makes sense to me when I think about how I drive. If there's a double yellow, I might even just drive 6 inches a little further, just a little bit further away. Okay. So that's the design. I'm going to go to what the voting and the next steps would be. We can definitely come back to the design again if people have some more questions on it, but I want to make sure we cover that. Okay, so I want to check the WebEx real quick. There's still nobody on the WebEx. All right, so this project has been around for a while. There used to be a petition. Raise your hand if you were involved in trying to get signatures on a petition. So NDOT has made changes because the petition was not working in any neighborhood. That's not just about you all, just all across Nashville. We heard lots of feedback. This isn't working. This is not working from council members, from neighborhoods, from residents, even us and the engineers. So NDOT made some changes based on all that feedback. Now mailer postcards get sent. I imagine that's why many of you all are here. So we're here at meeting number 2. The next step is going to be an online ballot. You all had a petition that took up some time. That's why these are going quicker now, but we're sort of resetting and saying, here's the design. We're here at meeting 2. The online ballot is the next step. So what's going to happen is NDOT is going to send another mailer postcard, just like the ones you got. It'll have like kind of a secret, I call it the secret code. It's going to be letters and numbers. It's different to each address. So if one person on your street wants to vote 10 times for 10 different people, they need to have your secret code. We check that. And so those ballots will go out. We'll keep the voting open for 6 weeks. And every property owner along Rio Vista Drive and Archwood and even the short section on Anderson will get the chance to vote. Each property owner will, residential property owner. Yes.
And technically, but I'm also on the corner of Rio Vista.
Yes. So if you have property that is adjacent to a street, you will get a mailer. And did you get? You're good. Yeah. So we want to avoid confusion on corner lots. Where's your mailbox? Where's your driveway? Just, if you have a side yard, front yard, backyard touching the street, you're eligible to vote, and that's eligible for all the streets if you're a residential property owner. Yes.
Like each individual person, or is it
So we look at Metro. So the question was, how do we handle the apartments? We always look at the Metro Nashville parcel viewer. So when you look at the parcel, again, please don't hold me to this. I believe it's one big parcel. And I'm saying that because I might go on there tomorrow and actually be 2. But I'm expecting it'll be 1, so they'll get 1 vote. Because there should be 1 parcel with 1 property owner. If you have any lots that have subdivided, like one house gets torn down and built 2, each house would get 1 vote, but the little common area wouldn't. That is usually created. So we try to avoid apartment complexes from swinging the vote if we did it where every resident there did it. So that's why we do it with property owners. Yes.
Our neighborhood, Archwood in particular, is suffering from a bunch of absentee landlordism.
Yes.
And so why wouldn't the people who actually live there get to say what happens?
Yes. So NDOT wants to prioritize the property owner since they're the one who owns the land, acknowledging that people that are renting and live there are residents, but NDOT wants the property owners to be the one voting on this.
They don't live there. I mean, how can can't they, half of the people I know can't get directly a hold of their landlord.
Gotcha.
Property managers and overseas owners and all this.
Let me finish the new process and see if that resolves or if you still have a concern. I want to make sure I hear you then. So these ballots will get mailed out to all the property owners. And if it's a renter and the property owner's in Iowa, that ballot goes to Iowa. It's wherever the property owner, the owner address is. And after 6 weeks, NDOT closes the voting window. And if 2/3 of the property owners that respond and vote, if 2/3 of the responses are yes, you're going to get the traffic calming. If that 2/3 is not met, you would not get the traffic calming. So the example I like to give is if your street has 100 property owners, but only 10 people vote, but 7 of those 10 people say yes, that's 70% of the property owners that responded. So that means the 90, I'm making these numbers up, but the 90 that didn't care or didn't respond doesn't count for or against. The yes or no is only off of the actual responses. So if there are management companies and people who just don't care and just don't want to respond, it doesn't hurt. Whereas the old petition process, it actually counted against the people that wanted it. That's the other change to this new system. And so does that kind of answer about the absentee?
In the actual apartments.
Well, but it doesn't matter whether they vote or not.
Right. It'll be going to the one property owner.
It's just the people that vote, they take a percentage of the ones that
Right.
vote.
So that whole apartment complex is going to be, there's going to be one eligible voter, and it's the property owner of that apartment complex. So,
That's a good change.
so that's how that is set up now with the voting. Trying to think, is there anything else? I want to make sure I don't leave anything out here, but that's a distinction I just want to make sure we draw. Again, everybody can vote yes or no. There'll be a QR code with a website. You can go to the traffic calming website. It's not up there now, but this design will be on the webpage. So you or anybody who hasn't been to these meetings, when they get the mailer, they'll be able to go to a webpage and see Rio Vista and Archwood, the design. So they can actually look at the design we were all looking through. So if they want to vote, but they don't know, it'll be there for them to look at, and they'll all get to vote. You put in your name and address and that key, like secret code. And at the end, we tally it, and usually NDOT lets the council member and the lead neighborhood residents who've been involved with managing this know what the result is. Oh, one thing I did want to say, it is a street by street vote. So it is possible for some of these streets to be successful and some of them to be unsuccessful. So it is a not all or nothing. So Anderson, Rio Vista, and Archwood would be basically 3 separate votes that are being tallied separately. So just want to make sure everybody knows that as well. And sometimes we see, so our plan, I'm gonna go back to the map just because that helps me visually. It's possible, it's not an all or nothing. It's not everything or nothing. It's possible that some of these streets could pass that 2/3 vote, but some may not pass the 2/3 vote. So it's not one big neighborhood vote.
Each street's different, separate.
Correct. We're tallying them and counting the votes separately for all 3.
Get something done on Rio Vista, but then on Archwood, if they don't vote, you don't get nothing.
It's possible, or vice versa, or what? Yeah. Correct. So
Oh, I got you. Okay.
right. So that's where, yeah, if one person likes it and only one person votes, that's 100% of the people that responded on Anderson. So I'll admit Anderson's kind of a little odd in our traffic calming neighborhood. We're trying to kind of connect the dots up there. So it's a little unique situation. Rio Vista and Archwood are the more common ones where you have many property owners along. If a property owner owns multiple properties, they're getting 1 vote total, not per property. So we've had some streets where we've seen, maybe one property owner owns 10 parcels. They do not get 10 votes. It is 1 vote per property owner on each street. Now, if someone has property on Archwood and someone has property on Rio Vista, they'll get to vote once on each street. But yeah, we're trying to avoid one person who owns a lot of property from kind of swinging a vote either way. We want to be fair based on the owners. So that's the process. So what we're prepared is we want to make sure we answer any questions about the design, hear any comments if there are any. If we're all good, we're prepared for these mailer ballots to go out in the mail next week. where essentially the voting window would probably start next Friday. I don't have the date. Is that the 24th of February? And then the voting would close 6 weeks after February 24th. Doesn't have to be if there's some things we need to like talk about or revisit the design. We feel comfortable as engineers with the design, but we want to hear from you all. But that's kind of our proposed next steps that we're ready to do if the group here feels ready to do that. So that's the conclusion. But again, I want to answer any questions or comments.
Speed bumps or humps versus the speed cushions.
Yes. So I'll try my best to answer that question. So speed bumps, because there's us engineers, of course, we make things more complicated. So there's a bunch of words. So we call speed bumps what you see like in a grocery parking lot. And we just will not put those on public streets. In fact, if you ever drive over one on a public street, I hope you let Pub Nashville know. We shouldn't be going over those on public streets. These are speed cushions, which are basically, if you see these, what they have the gaps, they're speed cushions. Then we have something called speed tables, which is where they span the entire width of the street with no gaps. We do speed tables sometimes. The reason why we typically do not propose speed tables is, again, for that emergency vehicle response. The front axles, the tires are wide enough they can straddle those cushions without going over them. Usually the back tires, they have 2 tires because there's so much weight. They will kind of be getting up on these, I'm gonna call them the ramps. So they don't have like a full on like we do. So it does impact emergency vehicle response times, but not as much as a speed table would, where it's across the entire road and it's got to go the full, I guess, height above. So we do look at both. I would say the vast majority of the time, though, we are designing these for that reason.
So is there a comparison on the average speed?
Right.
Regular street.
Oh, I see. So are you asking basically like what we expect will happen to the speeds when these get installed? So I will tell you that Nashville, I have good news and bad news. The bad news is I don't have exact numbers to tell you. The good news is in the country, we are not the only city that's putting these in, and there is lots of data that supports these slow the average speed on a street better than nothing. And the other thing I'll mention is, Metro Council has really been funding the traffic calming program, and NDOT's been doing more of these. So on this very date, I don't have many before and after studies in Nashville, but because just like you all, now all these neighborhoods, more of these are getting installed, and NDOT is performing those studies. So if you were to ask me 6 months from now, we may have a whole lot more before and after data here in Nashville. But generally speaking, there are benefits across the country. I think the few that Nashville's done, they're seeing it, and it kind of makes sense. I mean, people have to go over these. It's better than smooth pavement if you want to manage speeds. So.
And the reason, just to tell you our situation, we've lived right in the corner of Rio Vista and Van Diver, which is right at the corner, right? Yeah, it goes right over here. And she actually got the road changed, the name changed. But anyway, obviously Rio Vista needs to be done first because people fly on it. But what our concern is in that neighborhood, ever since we've lived there for the last 4 years, triple the amount of people are walking their dogs and walking through there, and literally 60 miles an hour by us. And because it's just nothing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a matter of time.
Right. Well, on Rio Vista, you mean? Oh, I see. Okay. And I apologize. I'm not familiar with that street name. Is that what DuPont changes the name to?
Yes.
Okay.
It goes over Rio Vista.
Okay. So one thing I will say is that I believe the next round, the selections for the traffic calming program will be announced in the next few weeks. I don't know if the street you're talking about has been applied for or not, but if it has been, then it should be in. Well, so then it should be, I don't know where it'll fall. Again, we probably have 400, but I was going to say if you didn't, after the announcement, so late February, March, the application window will open where if there's any other streets that you all feel like there needs to be traffic calming, you can apply for that. It'll get put in the group. What's that? What day? March 7th is when it opens. Okay, I didn't want to overcommit NDOT, but So if there's other streets, you can apply for them. That's where we collect all the data again. That pie chart I showed you, it'll get lumped in with all the 400 and we'll see how those streets rank. But we like to make sure people know another window's coming up for any streets you can think of that are not these streets. There's another window coming up. I'm sure you'll see lots of next door posts and blasts, and we try to NDOT tries to make sure everybody knows about it. So, but if you've already applied for it, it should be in. And I don't know where it will fall in the rankings, but you shouldn't have to reapply. In fact, I may want to get with you afterwards just to make sure I know the street and just so I can confirm that it's in there. It should be, but I want to make sure. Not that it's selected, but that's in the consideration list. Yeah, okay.
Anything will be improved.
Okay.
Never forget one Saturday morning, man, we're sitting there, bang, bang. And I looked out the window and I'm telling you, a car literally flew over and I realized this is a freak thing, but this guy just flew, man. And we ran out, we looked, the car upside down and turned about 3 or 4 times. And the kid was just sitting in the middle of the road. He looked like he was about 15.
Oh, wow.
Anyway, sorry, I don't know why
No,
I put that out there.
that's
I'd be interested in how many wrecks right there at the old Hickory and Rio Vista. Because I can tell you, I've counted at least 20, 30 for
gotcha.
us living there.
Gotcha. Yes.
I did a lot of actual reading and research on things that have been done all over the world about this. And some of them are like, if you create a destination instead of it being a throughway, slows traffic. And if you create any kind of curves or pockets that go out, like even if it's a line that goes out like that as you go down the street, or if you take an intersection and you paint it in a design, slows everybody down.
Yeah, so I'd love to respond to that. Those are great ideas. So regarding the treatments, I think where if instead of going on a straight line, it kind of forces you to kind of have to turn your steering wheel. Is that kind of what you're talking about? So just a little bit. So I will tell you that is absolutely something in our toolbox. We do consider those. Back to our walking path, we have to maintain about 10 or 11 feet for each direction of travel. And we are not a program that widens streets or takes anyone's right away. We do not do that in the traffic calming program. So again, on Archwood Drive, that option is really not viable because to do that, we'd have to kind of reconstruct the road a little bit. I will say on Rio Vista where it's wider, that is something that's a kind of a little wider where we could do something, but oftentimes in those areas, we have to restrict parking. We can't have any parking along the street where we're kind of doing that. And when we do think about that, we talk to the property owners, and oftentimes they don't want their on-street parking removed, which is fair. So we kind of take that off the table. But that is something we look at for wider streets because in the program, but you're absolutely right. That is a great traffic calming when a road's getting reconstructed. Those are the things NDOT's looking to do through other programs with a little more funding on how can we take these straight line roads and do some of that traffic calming. Regarding the painting of the intersections, I don't think that NDOT would do that for traffic calming. And the reason is because NDOT's done some creative thing. There's some kind of opposing zigzag lines they've done on some streets in Nashville. And the feedback is the first couple of times the motorist is like, whoa, this is different. What is this? And then they realize it's no different. They kind of continue driving over the white zigzag lines with no. So NDOT, Nashville's not really doing that as much. So when it's just kind of, when it's paint only and it's something they have to go over real quick, we haven't seen a noticeable difference. The continuous, apologies for rubbing it in, the continuous wide edge lines that are on Rio Vista, that is something that's kind of continuous. That does have an impact to kind of make the driver want to slow down a little bit, but that's what we've seen on the intersection. It could be a great beautification. I don't want to say no, but from the traffic calming program, we would probably not do that. Yeah. Well, council member, is there anything else, since now I know you're the council member, is there anything else that you'd like to add or conclude?
We don't have the same coding process. And because so many properties are owned by landlords that are here,
That's right. That's true. And again, I think the key thing is here, just to remind everybody, you all know it all too well. It used to be you had to get 70% of signatures along the entire street to sign. Not who all responded, just total. So if you had absentee landlords and not, you gotta find some way to get that signature. I mean, and so what the bottom line is, NDOT listened. We listened to council members, listened to neighborhoods, and we made a change because we want the program to be better. That's when I want to make sure you all know that when we hear feedback, some of it maybe we cannot accommodate, but when it's feedback that makes sense, like we're going to make that change so that it just helps the community. We always want to try to make things a little better. So thank you for your work on the petition, but you helped make the change to a better system that other neighborhoods and now you are benefiting from, maybe a little more of a fair system as far as the only the people that are voting actually count. So cool. Anything else? How much? Let's see. Let's see. I do see we have one person on WebEx. I want to make sure, Margaret, do you have any comments or questions? I apologize. I'm not sure when you joined.
I did join a little bit late. When did you say that the ballot was going to go out in the mail?
Yes. So you asked when the ballot would go out. So based on the feedback I'm hearing here, I think everyone could expect to see the ballots in their mailbox sometime next week. It might be late next week or even maybe the following weekend. But it would be you should expect to see them in the next 2 weeks from today.
Great. Okay.
Mail. Yes, they'd be going in the mail. And guys, I mean, everyone, sometimes mail gets lost. So what I'd like to ask you all is from this date, if it's been 3 or 4 weeks from this date today and you haven't gotten one yet, the postcard will also have a phone number to call somebody at NDOT. Hopefully neighbors talk. And there's also, and the number is also in the Nashville traffic. That sounds great. But yeah, Margaret, you could expect to get that in the next 2 weeks in the mail. But if you don't get it if you haven't gotten it by 4 weeks, you can go to the Traffic Calming webpage and call Gil, Thomas, or I talked to a neighbor to get the number off of theirs, and hopefully that would help.
Okay. Got it.
And one other thing is we realize some people may not have the internet. So these postcards, if people get the postcards, the mailer ballots, and they do not have the internet, that's also why Gil's name and number is on there. He will accept votes over the phone if people don't have internet access. So we want to make sure we're allowing everybody, regardless of their internet connectivity or lack thereof, to be able to vote. So that is an option that NDOT provides on that ballot as well. So, excellent. Well, thank you everybody for joining virtually and in person. And yeah, you can expect to see those ballots in the next 2 weeks. Yes. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Yes. All right, let me stop the recording.